GreenSense show is sponsored by CEA Technology, providing a sustainable modular indoor growing system. Visit CEATechn.com to learn more. I'm Robert Colangelo, and this is GreenSense, where we bring you eco-innovations that are changing your world. This week, we have the Cowgills, Rich and Ron, both contractors and host and co-hosts of Mighty House Radio Show, and they're going to share some practical tips on home energy audits. Ron and Rich, welcome to the GreenSense Show, and happy to have you back, Ron, and happy to meet you, Rich.
Yeah.
Good to be on.
Great to be on.
So before we get going, talk about how did two brothers start a radio show?
It just, it kind of evolved into it. I think we were both had our own contracting business and then kind of just stumbled into radio. It wasn't anything that we ever planned. And then we joined forces probably 15 years ago?
Yeah, about 15 years ago, we met through NARI, the National Association of Remodeling Industry, and it's been good since.
Yep.
So are you trying to be like Click and Clack and you're going to be Tick and Tack? Or what is it?
We have been accused.
To that.
We've been accused of being Click and Clack. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to call you Tick and Tack. So here we got the two.
There you go.
Well, I know Ron is one handyman and he has a page of certifications and qualifications would make him very experienced to share his insight on today's topic. Rich, do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
So yeah, Ron, like Ron said, we met a lot of years ago. So I held, like him, I educated when it comes to our certification. So Building Performance Institute, building analyst, envelope specialist, green certified remodeler through NARI, and a state of Florida licensed general contractor.
So you're in Florida, and Ron, you're up here in the Chicago area?
Correct.
All right, so we'll get two very different geographic perspectives.
Yes,
so
that's part of the show. That's the uniqueness of it, because we can talk about those different regions and how he does things versus the way we do it. And like the energy audit stuff, it's there's some drastic differences from what he's trying to protect the house from what we're trying to do up here. So
definitely
it's really interesting.
Heat and humidity are a big issue down there, and we're cold and heat. And humidity, right? So, all right, so let's get into it. We'll start real simple, and I'll let you choose who wants to answer, or you could both answer. What's the purpose of an energy and audit, and why would a homeowner pay to do one?
Go, Rich.
Because homeowners are always sensitive about price. So you tell us the main answer.
The reality is it's not that expensive. And so you're going to go spend $20,000, $30,000 on new windows in your house. Is that really the best use of that $20,000 or $30,000? Or is it some air sealing and insulation for $2,500 that saves you more money than that $20,000 or $30,000 will over the next 10 years? So let's find out where we have our leaking problems, where the issues are, and then we'll go ahead and address those. And if you want new windows, great, go ahead, spend the money. But the reality is you're going to spend 20 or 30 grand on windows. You're never getting that money back. You spend $2,500 on insulation and air sealing, that money's coming back this year. So that's really the only way to find this out is to do an energy audit. And for $400 on average for a house, you find out exactly where all those leaks are, and then you can start addressing them and fixing them.
Rich?
I think what changed too is when we started with the green certifications, not only the green certification, but when you went to the different levels of green, whether you had LEED, and LEED was a big driver in all of this. But unfortunately, LEED was about energy, and there's some confusion between what we're trying to do here. LEED was energy and efficiency, and they worried more about your light bulbs and energy usage, and they did not address indoor air quality as much. And that what led to a lot of sick house syndrome, almost what we did in the 70s when we just started putting plastic up.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about geographic differences. Ron, in the Midwest, what are the major issues?
So we've got a temperature range that could be 20 below to 100 degrees or 110. And the humidity could be 20% or it could be 90%. So we have all that going on, in those walls. And how do we protect those walls so they don't rot out? How do we keep the cool air in, the warm air out, or vice versa in the winter? So we're constantly battling with all that stuff. And so you have to figure out where your dew point is, and that's where you're designed to where your dew point's going to clash. So we're looking at a little bit different on our wall assemblies than what Rich does in Florida.
So with a more extreme temperature range, is it more or less expensive for an energy audit up here?
I don't know. What's an energy audit cost in Florida?
They don't really do them. We do blower door tests, but not, and we do energy calculations on a property prior to building them, but they don't typically do energy audits.
Yeah. So,
and Rich, what are your challenges down there in Florida?
So like Ron said, so being in a hot, humid climate, and our temperature is fairly consistent. I mean, winter, let's call it average is 70, and in the summer, average is 91. So it sounds hot, but it's only a 21-degree difference almost throughout the year. Our humidity drops in the winter down into the 30-40%. Summer's typically 60-70%. So for me, I think what it is trying to keep the inside cool, but blocking that humidity from outside, because like simple thermodynamics, more to less, right? So if we're running AC, not to drop the temperature in a home, but to dehumidify it, any air leakage you have, you're just going to have that humidity from outside migrating in. So we do blower door tests, but I'll be the first to admit that the state of Florida missed the mark because we're only required 7 air changes an hour, which is pretty bad.
Well,
that's an open window.
Yeah.
Like anything, there's different levels of effort, and capitalism's done a very good job at stratifying businesses these days. You could do a little study or a very in-depth one. So let's talk about the differences. Ron, what's a clipboard style audit? What do you get, and how much does it cost?
So that sounds like a basic, just like a walkthrough. You're not putting up a blower door test. You're not going to do that. I would still think that that's going to be in that $200 to $300 range. And at that point, you might as well just spend the extra money because that's where you're going to get most of your information. But even when I walk into a house just to do an estimate, I can walk through and pick out some really obvious areas that need to be addressed really fast. And it doesn't take a lot of time. So,
so what do you get? What specifically do you get when you spend that $200 to $300? Do you get a report? Do you get?
Yeah, we actually would generate a quick report telling you, here are the issues we found in our walkthrough, and here's how you should address them, and here's a rough budget to go ahead and do those. Now, if I do that energy audit or if I do that walkthrough, I'm not doing the work because to me, that's a conflict of interest. So that's why I use a third party person to come in and do the audits so that way it's his opinion. He's telling us what to do. And I don't have a dog in that hunt other than to take care of what he says needs to be done.
Sounds like a good way to avoid a conflict.
Right. There's no reason for me to walk in and say, oh, we need to do this. We need to take the drywall down. We need to put all closed cell, insulation in. And here's your bill for $150,000. That's crazy. So
have somebody come out and check your roof, and the roofer's going to tell you need a roof. So,
right.
Same thing. So. But what the energy auditors typically do in the report is they list things by priority or budget, biggest bang for your buck. So as Ron says, the air sealing is always, and we talk about this all the time on Mighty House, air sealing is far more important than insulation. So if you run a blower door test, you go around with a smoke stick and a can of foam and you start sealing up all those holes, right there, you're going to save a ton of money because you're stopping that air infiltration. Whereas at the same point, you could put small scraps of insulation in those holes, but all you've created is an air filter.
You're slowing it down. It's still coming in, just not as fast.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into that more comprehensive in-person energy audit. What do you get and how much does it cost?
So again, at least for us in our area here in the Chicagoland area, that's going to be about $400 depending on the size of your home. But they're setting up a blower door. They're actually
what's a blower door?
So you want to explain that?
Okay.
Because you actually got one.
Yeah. So blower door is actually it's a fan that's made to go into a door frame. Typically, we'll put it in the service door between the house and the garage. They open up the garage overhead door. You close all the windows and draft and fireplace dampers, anything that's there. And what it does is it negatively pressures the house to what they say 50 pascals, which is the equivalent of a 20-mile-an-hour wind across the house.
On all walls at the same time.
And so by negatively pressuring it, you can go around the house and find where air is flying in. So people tell you need new windows, it saves energy. The only time glass leaks is when there's a hole in it. So, but typically it's from around the window frame that was not properly insulated. And I say that with an asterisk because I used to do them incorrectly, but we didn't know any better 30 years ago, right? Talking insulation. Now I pull your window casing off and we foam that and reapply the casing, and we've just stopped all the air infiltration, and you didn't need a new window.
Now, do you use smoke in that, or is that just ambient air?
Oh, no, you mean the smoke sticks?
Yes.
Yeah, if you walk around with a smoke stick or like a punk, like what you use to light your fireworks, and you see the smoke coming off, you just hold that up against the window around the door frames or down along the baseboards, and you'll see it just rolling and rolling away. So it's pretty quick to find those leaks.
For us, like my guy that does my blower door testing down here, we'll let the fan run for 10 or 15, 20 minutes. I can go around with a thermal imaging camera and I'll have the exact opposite of what you guys will. I will have red spots showing wherever I've got hot air coming in.
Right.
Where Ron would do the same, and you probably, especially in the winter, when you would have a lot of blue showing.
Correct.
So there's a lot of tools out there that make it really easy, but you got to be willing to spend the $200 or $250 to do the blower door test. And from there, you'd be shocked how much money you can save.
Oh, right. That's great advice. Is it more expensive to cool or heat a facility?
I'm gonna personally say it's gonna be more to heat.
I would think so.
Because what you can cool a place down, the temperature is not going to not be too bad, but once you get the humidity out of it, you've got a wider range of where comfort that you get to actually spend your time in. Now, when you get down to Florida, I'm going to say, yeah, for sure, that he's going to save more on cooling than heating because he doesn't even have a furnace. So so depending on that region that you live in, you might be, you're obviously going to save more in Chicago on your heating bill than you are your AC bill. But
you go to Georgia
right.
Zone 4 or 4A, you're going to probably be almost even because your degree that, go by temperature. That's going to be very much both, all year. You're going to have almost the same heating and cooling. So now it's going to go down to price and fuel.
Right. And your equipment. So do you have high efficiency equipment? Are you using the old gas fired furnace that's 50 years old? So all those factors will play into it. So but air sealing even with old equipment is going to make a huge difference.
Makes lots of sense, and that's very good practical advice. So continuing along that line of practical advice, it's so hard to find labor these days, especially when it comes to contractors. What kind of advice do you have on finding a reliable, competent, and trustworthy energy auditor?
I see my mind just went blank. There is actually energy. If you just do a search for energy audit, there is an association out there. I can't remember the name. Do you got it, Rich?
No, I can look it up for you. I don't remember either.
But there is an association of energy auditors, and
let's just call it the AEA.
Okay, yes. So they're also going to certify those energy auditors. So you're going to want to look for those certifications and those programs, and then obviously just ask for referrals. There's not a lot of them out there. So you're even in the Chicagoland area, you're going to find a few, but there aren't that many. So your selection is going to be limited. So if the real estate people would start pushing those energy audits more and looking for those air infiltration numbers and putting those on the MLS, that would help drive that.
So that's a good point.
So it is required, but nobody does it.
So it is the Certified Energy Auditors Association. Something really original.
There you go, Robert.
I did
Great
find
job.
it on a different website. But yeah, if you Google that, you'll find that they do have some. But In honesty, because people were so reluctant, when I was up in Chicago, when I got BPI certified as building analyst and envelope specialist, I was planning on doing energy audits and blower door testing. And this was 13, 14, 15 years. You couldn't get anybody to spend $200 to do it.
Yeah.
The equipment's not cheap. So you got to get people to start realizing that insulation's not the answer.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that there's a shortage of energy auditors here in the Midwest. My brother's an electrician down in Florida, and he says it's very hard to get workers down there. How hard is it to find an energy auditor in Florida, Ron? Rich?
Like I said, energy audits are not a big thing, but I do have a number of people that are very much into that. I mean, we have an engineer named Andy Ask, who's good friends with another friend of ours from Georgia. Just drawing a blank.
Allison Bales.
Yeah, Allison Bales. So these guys, they all hold PhDs. They're all basic physicists, and this building science thing is their passion. So we get a lot of those guys, and I've met a few of them personally, where just having discussions with them, and you get lost pretty quick. But we find the people, again, it's just not a lot, unless it's mandated. People just don't seem interested in doing it.
No, well, and it really does make a huge difference. That $400 you spend, you're going to get that back that next heating season or that next cooling season. It'll come back to you instantly.
Yeah. In closing, if you could share some war stories, tell us about a simple find that created a big savings for a customer.
We've actually got a video on one that we did at a client's house. And so we did the blower door test. We went around, we fixed it, we insulated, did a whole bunch of stuff. And in the process, recreated this wind tunnel in a closet where he had knocked out some drywall. And it had actually sucked the door back open because there was so much air, because the floor joist went all the way through and then out to an attic space. So we couldn't figure out where this air was coming from. So we were digging around, finally found out where that was coming from. We stopped it and made a huge difference. And we would have never found it had we not been doing the air sealing and stuff that we were doing, because now it focused all that energy that the blower door was putting through this one floor joist space. And it just happened to be where an electrician just knocked a block out and, was running some wiring. So, that kind of stuff, you just can't explain. So,
Rich, can you share one?
Something similar. When I was still up in Chicago in the Oak Lawn area, I literally doubled the size of a person's home. And when I did that with, a second story addition, we downsized their equipment and cut their heating and cooling bills in half and doubled the size of the house. Just by using proper planning, choosing windows for orientation, using air sealing techniques, and then good insulation. So.
Well, that's quite a high note. So I think we'll close on that, and really appreciate the Cowgill brothers joining us, Rich and Ron, which we will affectionately call Tick and Tack in relationship to Click and Clack. And they're host and co-host of Mighty House Radio Show. Thank you for that practical advice. Would love to have you back on the show, and appreciate you sharing your insights on home energy audits.
We're here for you anytime, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
Visit the GreenSenseShow.com website to learn more about sponsorship. I'm Robert Colangelo. Thank you for listening to GreenSense, and check out the GreenSense Minute every Thursday and Saturday on 105.9 FM, WBBM, Chicago. Great job, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice to meet you, Rich. I forgot to ask, who's older?
I think Rich is by like 2 or 3 days, right?
20 days. I'm the 11th and you're the 30th?
27th.
27th. So
wait, you're not brothers?
No.
Oh.
Oh,
it happens all the time. Don't worry about it. We don't even bother anymore.
Oh.